Good evening. All right, my name's Donovan. A couple of disclosures. So, number one, I'm not a hardware guy or person. I'm not exactly technical. I usually know enough to get myself in trouble, but I enjoy this stuff, and I'm going to kind of give you tonight, instead of what I do more, which is more customer discovery and business development and sales, what I want to do is kind of give you an overview of who this company is, what we're doing here in the U.S. and also in about 30 other countries, and then let you see kind of what the hardware is that we're playing with, but really focus on what I think is the most important piece to what our message is, which is understanding the business case. And so the message tonight and what I want to get through is if you have your own company or if you're developing your own product, you really got to know who it is that's going to cut you a check at the end of the day. And if you know who that is, you're going to have a much higher success rate at building a business. And so that's a lot of what this company is, who I am, and what we do. So disclosure number one is I'm dangerous when it comes to anything technical. I'll try and answer your questions if you have them. The second thing is that this is not this is a new U.S. company, but it's a legacy company. They've been around since 2009. So I'll kind of walk you through their history real quick to give you some context, and then we'll talk about what we're doing here in the U.S. and how we're evolving and iterating both hardware and software as we build out the business model. Okay? Cool. How many of you guys are engineers and focus strictly on hardware?
Mix.
Mix, okay.
Both hardware.
Yeah, me too.
And the rest of you just geek out on it? Just enjoy it, the idea, the concept?
I write software that talks to hardware.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I sell hardware. Sorry?
I sell hardware.
You sell hardware, okay, so we'll be able to probably connect better on the bullshit level.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So QoWisio, if you're from France, it's a V, QoWisio, is a group of guys that started a company back in the 2000s. It got acquired, and they were sitting around and they came up with an idea to really focus on remote management services with telecommunications. This is in France. And the four of them started this company with the idea that minimizing truck rolls out to these remote towers, it's a real simple ROI. If you can help provide the data of what's going on at those towers, you don't have to just run by, open a door, check power, check fuel, check is a door open or closed. Really simple data points that they had to do, right? That was part of the business model. So they built this technology starting in 2009 around this remote management services. And so they did that for a few years. They got funding in 2015 to try and change their business model. And part of their goal was to enter the U.S. market. They were already doing work in about 30 different countries. So they consider themselves to be no longer just a telco company. They're basically wanting to accelerate all these different IoT projects. And you can say IoT, and it can mean a different thing to different people, right? So I'll go more into what we focus on and how we look at IoT in general. How we view AT&T and 5G, and how we view simple things like LoRa and LPWA, which is kind of an area that we're playing. Okay? But they think of themselves as a solution maker. I'm going to also probably mix up tonight they and I or we, and that's only because I'm a new entity as part of the company recently. So if I stutter, if I don't explain myself very clearly, it's because I'm still learning as well. There's another disclosure. All right, so there's about 50 people in the company, 30% R&D. They have huge clients. Again, we talk about telcos in multiple countries, a lot of developing countries. We currently have offices in Africa, France, and Austin. And you can kind of see what our expertise is. It's not just hardware, it's the whole hardware, software, the communication, etc. So why Austin? So here's some context. So just to give you a little background on me, I'm a career business development guy, everything from sales and marketing. Most of my life has been spent with early stage companies, early stage technology, trying to figure out how to commercialize ideas, commercialize innovation that is either coming out of labs or universities, and try and bring into the market. And so I'm a real strong generalist. I used to do a lot of stuff with Wi-Fi and stuff back in the 90s when it was first coming out with like 802.11. I've worked with hardware, I've worked with software, so I've got a real broad general background. I've also worked with large corporations building global business programs and sales programs with Apple, VMware. Again, just dangerous enough from a technical standpoint to be able to do that, but my love and passion is around the business case. It's really trying to figure out how do you take an idea and go to market. So that's where these guys come in. Last year, the founder, or one of the founders, the CEO who's here in the US, his name is Guillaume, they sent him here to the US to check out Austin, and they chose Austin over San Francisco and New York for plenty of reasons, mostly because Angers, which is in France, is a sister city with Austin, and there's a landing pad program here. So the idea of coming here, if you're a foreign entity coming into the US market, if you go to San Francisco, you can imagine trying to hire people is almost impossible, besides the fact that it's very expensive. Finding a place to live is expensive. Just getting, any attention whatsoever to find customers is a very difficult process, especially if you're trying to find investment. You come to Austin, number one on all the lists, all the PR that's been going on about Austin from a technology standpoint, a startup standpoint, quality of living. And so they chose Austin, and they chose a program at Capital Factory. You guys familiar with Capital Factory?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So over the last 3 years, I've built a program with a good friend of mine, Fred Schmidt, at Capital Factory. Within Capital Factory's program, they have an accelerator, right, for startups, which includes some investment. Then they have co-working and an event space, so there's about 100,000 people going through there every year down at the Omni, top floor, 5th floor, and they just took over the entire lower floor of the Omni Hotel. But we built a program targeting international companies looking to enter the US market, not just startups, but SMEs. And the reason we did is there was so much activity coming from South by that these companies were going, oh, wait a minute, we don't have to go to New York, we don't have to go to Silicon Valley. We can come to Austin, and we have the 13th largest economy in the world.
Yep.
You have 4 cities that are in the top 11 in the US. You have more engineers and engineering graduates within a 200-mile radius than anywhere in the US. So it's a really rich environment for companies, not only from California or New York, but from outside the US to hit the ground. We're very collaborative here, we always have been. We're very creative, we're very open, and we share. So Capital Factory kind of represents that about Austin. And so this was a great landing place for a company like this that decided to take a swing at the US. And they didn't do it without thinking about strategy and tactically what to do. Yeah.
How many people do you have here in Austin?
It's myself
out
and
of
you.
those 50.
Just 2.
Okay. And all
One
the
of the
rest are in
founders.
France?
Sorry?
All the rest are in France?
Probably about 2/3 are in France.
Okay.
We've got some in Africa, parts of Asia, Philippines, but most of those programs are focused on the telco side of the business. Starting in 2015, they broadened out into what we're going to talk about tonight, and what we're doing. And we are looking to hire. That will happen in Q4, but we're still in the process of building revenue, building pilots, and I can kind of go into that. But again, just go back to this company, established founders, good investment, solid business model in their existing business. So it wasn't 4 guys sitting around going, hey, I have an idea. It was, hey, we've got this working business model. How do we reapply it to new business cases? How do we use different technology that's coming into play right now, like LPWA and LoRa, to unblock these IoT projects that are going to change the world? We all know it's coming. We know connected devices and the numbers. If you read them today, it's 20 billion devices by whatever date. I mean, it's a known thing. Things are going to be connected. Come on in. Okay. So that's just some context. Again, it's not necessarily a startup group, but early stage company with a lot of background and success, and a lot of focus on R&D. Okay. Any questions about that? No? Okay, so I got engaged with these guys at that time last year to help them start the process, working with the CEO, and I ended up coming on board in March with them to really start accelerating going to market. So we've got solid products. We've got projects in France right now and other parts of Europe that we'll go through. And now we're starting to apply them here in the US market. All right, and I added these 2 slides that I'm going to go through because these came from Guillaume, so it kind of gives you an idea of what they went through, but how different culturally it is. And I think even though he was struggling with how to change his messaging of what he was trying to present to people, I think we here in the US have the same problem, is that we tend to talk about our technology. We don't talk about the problem, the pain. And so what my education is, and my experience, and my working with startups all around the world, is that until you learn who your customer is, why they have an issue, what that pain is, and then apply your technology as a solution to that pain, you're never going to get paid. Well, you might get paid, but you're not going to build wealth, right? So you're not going to build a company out of that. You really have to understand what are the issues. AT&T does this very well. They do other things worse, but they do really well. They understand who their customer is, and then they provide products to that customer. They're slow to get there sometimes, but they do, right? And it's the same thing with a startup. You have to iterate very quickly, and that's what I think he's gone through, which is interesting. So one of the things that he learned was that the product is not the priority, right? You've got it, and if you go to France, every single marketing document, most marketing documents, most messaging is all about the technology. LPWA, sensors, hardware, software, firmware. It doesn't talk about the business case and why someone's going to write out a check and pay you thousands of dollars to take away that pain, or make them more money, or increase their margins, or whatever the business case is. So focusing on value proposition, focusing on pain points of the customer, and really storyboarding with what your technology does to help solve the problem is a key lesson that he's gone through and we've worked on together. And I think this is good too, right? Always a positive attitude. Your product is awesome, but it does not mean people are going to buy it. So your little pet hardware, whatever it is, your software. What's the movie with the salesman? He just passed away. He was on Saturday Night Live. He's always talking about his little pet. But the idea is that yes, that's it. Who said that? Nice, thank you. Is to get away from focusing on this and really focus on the person that's sitting across from you, or whoever it is, and understand what that pain is. And the more we do that, the more success we'll have. And this, he learned this too. This is a little bit different than France, right? I mean, we go into a meeting. We met with HEB. It was, 55 minutes to the T. And at the 5-minute mark, it was, okay, time's up, wrap up, pick your points and go. So a lot of really good business concepts for him to learn, and I think these are things that are important for all of us to consider, whether you're with a large corporation or a small business, right? Okay. So, what is QoWisio? Let's go right to the problem, right? So, there's a lot of technology out there. You guys familiar with LPWA technology, LPWAN, LoRa?
Yes.
Yes. So, IoT projects in general are very expensive. When I say in general, I mean when you start looking at machine-to-machine or different types of technologies that are using two-way communication or high bandwidth that can be very costly. And usually you're dealing with a hardware provider, a software provider, maybe a combination of both, and you have to construct your own. Or you're working with a third party that's going to help pull all those pieces together like a general contractor. And that way the company has one choke point, but they're still dealing with what I would call the Microsoft model, right? You got OS, you got hardware from Dell, whereas Apple is total development, right? They do the software, the hardware, they do everything. They control that environment. So it's very expensive today, the way IoT is set up. We know it's changing. It's very energy intensive, right? To send that data from an autonomous device takes a lot of energy, and therefore there's cost. It's very complex, like I just mentioned, and time to market. So you may have an idea of what you want to solve, but you've got to go find the bits and pieces to pull it all together. So that's the main problem. And what these guys do is really kind of focus on simplifying the whole process. And they always talk about unblocking. Here I go again, I'm talking about them. We talk about unblocking projects. And the way that we do it is low TCO, right? So if you take an item that, say it's a sensor, you know, this is a temperature sensor, and we can launch this out there for $100 a year, $100 with a $20 a year follow-on. Very inexpensive. Battery lasts anywhere from 2 to 5 years. All of a sudden, those projects that were going to cost tens of thousands of dollars are going to cost $1,000, $2,000. So it's a different mindset on the ability to get to the data. So we're unblocking it by using this low TCO model. Longer lifespan of the sensors, right? You can use coin batteries, and batteries can now last for up to 10 years, depending on what the cadence is of the sending of the information. Easy to install. This has got magnets on it. I can walk in and just basically, if I had metal, it would just stick, right? I don't have to deal with wires and cables, etc. And then we included in connectivity. So, you guys know what Sigfox is? Have you ever heard of Sigfox? I figured you might. So Sigfox is a network provider. They're an AT&T wannabe around LPWA. So in Europe, and specifically in France, they've got their own public network that you can pay to use, right? Just like you can pay to use AT&T or Verizon, etc. They're actually here in the U.S. now. And they're starting to try and go city by city. So, but they're coming at it from the network side, and again, they fall into this problem of complexity. Because yeah, you can pay to use their network, but you've got to build the sensors, you've got to build the software for it, or find it, and put it all together to use it. And so you're dealing with multiple providers, and it can be complex. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So what QoWisio does is we change all that. There I said we, it's good. And we create our own stack. So again, going back to the Apple kind of Microsoft model, right, is that we can play well with others, right? But our goal right now is to actually shrink everything into one solution. So we have everything in-house, everything from the device design, to the firmware, hardware, the network. So we build our own gateways. We have our own applications for mobile and web, which I'll show you. And obviously what that does is it reduces cost, because now you can shorten that stack down and you're going to save across the board. Instead of dealing with individual markups for each solution, you now have one. And so what we do compared to Sigfox, which is a network provider, is we are a solution provider. So we provide it all. But we provide it in a private network standard. So we're not using a public network. So let me give you an example. We'll go into, we've got a pilot right now at Fresh Plus. You guys familiar with Fresh Plus, grocery store? We provide them with a gateway, with the sensors. Right now we're set up to 3G, but they can plug it into their Ethernet and they're off and running. Plug and play, their app works, secure, and it's off and running. And it took like an hour to install. Right? Magnetized, there's no wiring, no issues. It's very simple, straightforward, and it's a $6,000 to $7,000 a year savings just in labor. Do you know what they do? They're required to go around and read manual thermostats in every cold case. Guess how many they have? They have 30, 35, I think, including freezers. Every hour, now they do it kind of religiously every hour. Most grocery stores do it maybe 4 times a day. Every hour they're going around, they're manually writing down the temperature of every cold case. It takes 15, 20 minutes for one person to do it. You add that up over a year, and it's about $7,000 in labor costs. That could be used for stocking or for customer service or something more productive, bottom line. Right? And that was kind of our first, I'm going to come back to this a few times. That was our first assumption, was we were going to save them money, right? But what we learned through what's called customer discovery is that it's not just the labor savings. In fact, it's not labor savings that they got excited about. What it was a cold case You guys know what I mean by cold cases, right? So you've got vegetables or freezer, walk-ins, etc. Beer. I mean, I wish we were at Sherlock's right now so I could have a beer, but
2 weeks.
It's a case that's open and you can pull things out of that you want to buy? Is
yeah,
that the deal?
yeah, exactly. Or they're open air too,
Right.
right? They've got a skirt of air going. And I don't know a lot about the technology of refrigeration, but they have a defrost cycle. And I'll go into this in more detail, but what we found is that the owner was not concerned about the labor. He's glad to have his guys walking around. It's like, yeah, every hour they're spending 20 minutes, and that's fine because they're talking to people, they're out there, they're checking shelves. But what he said is that at 3 o'clock in the morning, we could have a power outage, and I wouldn't know if the compressor went on and didn't come back on. And it happened. It did happen while we had this set up. And so this system sends an alert, lets them know, and it's intelligent enough to send an email or a text to say, hey, there's a problem, and then they can deal with it. And they don't lose all that product. Some product can be upwards of $500,000 if it's a pharmaceutical refrigerator. We're not talking $500, we're talking huge financial impact. So for a few $1,000s, they can completely not only have the insurance, but have this thing installed in an hour and be up and running. That's pretty powerful. So our assumption has changed, but we got to that through what I call customer discovery 101. It's talking to the people that are going to pay, right, and learning from. So that's what our goal is, was really to make it a private network, a private solution for the customer, knowing that we're going to get to the use of a public network. AT&T's working on 5G, right? I know it's not LPWA, but it's going to have end-to-end components to it.
Well, we have LTE too, which
LTM.
we just launched. So
Okay. Those are the boxes that are around town right now, up on all the towers?
that's something else.
Okay. So that's another toy?
Yeah.
So, go ahead, you have a question?
On the stack there, like between the cloud and apps, I think you kind of answered it for that grocery store, but I was going to ask, do your customers typically want to use like your apps or your web interface, or do you provide like an API if they have like their own, like they want to connect it to their own app or something like that?
Sure.
Like what do you do?
So yes, on both accounts. So Fresh Plus doesn't have an ERP or any type of software like that.
Right,
So
yeah.
for them, anyone in the store, including the owner, the general manager, or a clerk, can have it on their phone. They can choose whether they get alerts or not. They can see it, check it regularly.
So they log into your like web portal or something?
We create their own app for them. So we have a container app that, whether it's Android
Oh, okay.
or iOS, as well as web or just browser.
And it looks like white label, like it looks like their app or something?
Yeah, it's their logo. They click on it, and I mean it's the same back end with just a different.
Yeah. Okay.
But we do APIs. I mean, again, the goal here is to get that data, make it usable. And these types of situations that we're about to go through, this is really small data. We're not talking about two-way communications. We're not talking about 4 gigs coming through for some movie you want to stream. I mean, this is 16 bits of, here comes a packet. And what LPWA is awesome about is that I can cover a grocery store, no problem. I can cover this whole building, no problem. I can put it on the top of this building, and I can go 20 miles line of sight. So when you start talking about oil and gas, or we're doing some stuff with cattle ranches, we're doing stuff with a couple of other grow operations for agriculture, where you're talking about vast areas that don't have great 3G connectivity, where it's more expensive, we can cover the whole thing with one gateway. So really powerful stuff. And you still have to backhaul it to something. It's got to have a 3G connection at one point, or it's going to be connected to broadband or Ethernet somewhere. But the box itself, this little box right here, this thing's freaking powerful. I mean, it's unbelievable how far. We've done some tests just here, and for $300-400, $500 for a gateway that can do that type of coverage, that's pretty cool. It starts opening up all these business cases that people wouldn't even think about because it would be too expensive to get something so simple. Is there a gate open or a door open? Well, I'm going to have to go check. There's no way I'm going to go spend thousands and thousands of dollars to just find out if a door's being opened or shut, or a tank's empty or full, or power generators on or off, or whatever that simple data is. But this technology changes that paradigm.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
So then with this particular product here, you're not looking at doing any kind of video surveillance, nothing high bandwidth then?
No. No, I think, you know, what I'm presenting to you guys tonight is where we are today. I think if you think about how complex IoT is and what it means to different people, different perspectives, you know, this group, this business is built around looking at the simple data, the simple, the things that cost companies thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of just wasted inefficiency, right? You know, if you have a tower that's 200 miles away and there's 3 of them out there, and you got to send a truck out there once a month, you start adding that up with that cost, and that guy goes out there and they come back and they didn't do anything other than go, yep, I'll come back in 3 weeks. If you can save that type of labor, it can be really powerful with the bottom line. And that's what we want to do. So this is some examples of, again, coming from their background. Remember that they're coming from this telco world and remote management services. But, you know, environmental monitoring, I think, is where we're going to start focusing the most. But we can do power monitoring, we can do security stuff, not necessarily video, but access, open, closed. You know, these remote closets that are out there on these towers, are people will break into them and steal stuff.
Basically telemetry.
Yep.
Okay.
But they've got about we've got about 40. Guillaume's going to see this video and he's going to give me shit for. They've got about 40 different sensors that are off the shelf. So, and I'm going to go into some of these use cases, specifically the grocery one, because I think it's interesting. But you know, these are just some of the areas, and what we're doing, and this kind of goes back to why I joined. So I have a degree from UT. You guys ever heard of the Master in Science and Technology Commercialization at UT? So this is a 1-year program. Come on in, man. Join us.
Yeah, we have seats on this side of the room too.
All hardware, the toys are over here too, so don't be too scared. So that program is built around this whole customer discovery process, right? It's really about, it's what we call the quick look. And so it's really going out and looking at the market and saying, where does this make sense? Where can we make money? Where can we make really good money? Where can we solve a problem with this type of technology or innovation that is going to generate money, generate wealth, right? So that's what my background is, and what I geek out on. I geek out on hardware too, but I geek out on the business process. Like, how do you find an opportunity where someone's going to cut you a really large check for solving their pain? And so these are pains, right? Tracking equipment, you know, understanding environmental factors like temperature, humidity. We can go into more of these. Simple things like voting machine. Yes, I'm happy with customer service, or no. Really simple, but really, really important data for businesses. Is a smoke hatch open or closed? Is a door open or closed? Simple data, things that people don't necessarily think they want to know, but they do manually, right? Connected road signs. We met with the Texas Asphalt Association, and their biggest problem is what? Safety. Is cars entering the work zone and killing people. He started telling me statistics that was alarming. Part of that problem is, one, knowing if a car enters the work zone, but it's also, is the sign up? Did it fall over? Did the warning sign fall over? So we're doing tests with this already in France, and we're looking at doing some stuff at Texas A&M with the Transportation Institute, where maybe we can do projects where we're testing our technology in real world settings to try and save people's lives. Cool stuff, right? And there's a business case there. It's not just save people's lives, but you can actually make enough money to do that, to save people's lives. So those are the things that we're going through right now. We're vetting all these different business cases. You can think about a warehouse, right? Simple as a warehouse. You've got equipment, people are putting stuff in there, and they need to know what the temperature and humidity is. Maybe the products they're putting in there are high-value products that if the temperature goes over 100 degrees, it's going to destroy the product. Right? So it's added value and added services for the warehouses to provide to logistic companies and product companies. Okay? So again, real quick, just on the software, it's 24/7, obviously, everything's autonomous, you can do different types of alerts. Obviously, the information is directly on the app, and it's for mobile as well. And then I wanted to go into some use cases. So, again, each one of these use cases can be applied to multiple businesses, right? So you may have a warehouse that has tanks involved, or you may have, let's say a peach orchard in Fredericksburg that has gates they need to know if they're open or closed. Is a fuel tank full or empty? This was an example of we're doing a project right now with one of the biggest construction companies based out of Pennsylvania, where they have remote operations with gas tanks, where construction company vehicles come up, they hit it with an RFID tag, NFC setup, and they can fill their tank up for gas, but they're unmanned, right? So we're building a sensor now that's got the NFC built in, but it also has a connection that backhauls through LPWA over a large area that solves one of their biggest problems, which is theft. Someone coming up and taking gas from them isn't part of their operations. Pallets. So I never in a million years thought I'd ever know, much less care, about pallets. It's a really interesting problem from a supply chain standpoint. There's companies, how do I unpause it? I'll leave it here a second. So pallets real quick. So pallets are interesting because there's companies that they own the pallets, they have pools of pallets. Well, they all want them to be intelligent. But to be intelligent, what does that mean? Well, you want to know where it is all the time. Okay? Great, I'm going to put a sensor on there, it's going to have GPS, it's going to have 3G, and it's going to last for like 3 months. And it's going to cost me from a connectivity standpoint. Right? So it's not necessarily feasible. But with LPWA, you put a gateway up at one location, you put another LPA gateway at another location, and this little pinger, I'll show you, but it either attaches to the pallet or they've got it built in, and when it leaves and it doesn't ping the gateway anymore, it checks out, you know it's en route. When it arrives at the destination, it pings and it checks in. Simple solution. $3. GPS, everything else, $40, $50, $30. But if you get it down below $10, you've got a business case per pallet, right? 1 year, 3 year, 5 year longevity, depending on how many times it's hit.
These one on wooden pallets or on the deposits?
Bunch, yes. So right now the project we're doing in France is wooden pallets with Rouge, the red pallet. And then there's some projects here in the U.S., but it's with a freight forwarder. So to go into your question, we're doing it with bulk containers. We're doing it across oceans. So we've got a pilot set up in Los Angeles, Amsterdam, somewhere in the Netherlands, I can't remember, I think it's Amsterdam, and Tokyo. And so one of the busiest routes, and again, this little sensor goes in, shows up in LA, it pings, the freight forwarder knows that it's there. It may be on the manifest from AES notifying that it's there, but they don't really have their eyes on it. The second this hits that gateway, they know exactly where it is. And it costs them, in bulk, $3 to $5. Pretty powerful stuff. Simple data, simple process, but it unblocks those projects that can help a business be more effective at customer service, at operational efficiencies, which obviously all affect the bottom line and margin. And I don't know why I can't turn this off. So that's pallets. And then we were just talking about the containers. And this was interesting because this has to do with not just tracking the container, but was it open and closed? Right? Because that's a theft issue. And so that security is really important. Another one is simple is containers, right? Is it full? So you think about just in a city, right? They talk about smart city stuff right now about Could you increase the efficiency of trash pickup by knowing whether or not someone has trash or not, or when they have trash? This could happen inside of a grocery store as well. Right? So it's not necessarily just temperature. You could do things that impact the janitorial process within a grocery or retail store. This is an example of the power monitoring that I was talking about with their kind of history. The guys came from the telco industry. So they don't have HVAC there, but CMV, so HVAC monitoring, so you can monitor airflow, you can monitor all the equipment. There's a lot of smart building enablement technology that's already out there, but it's very expensive to retrofit. So this type of technology for $100, you can put this sensor on this AC unit or this airflow unit and have data sent to you. And I'm going to come back to that because it's important, not just for the building, but for the service companies. Skydome supervision, it's just a simple open-close, right? It's got a attenuation, tell you it's open-close. Connected road signs. Sorry, I didn't know this for time, so I stole this from Guillaume. Connected parking solution, we're doing that right now in France. Not sure it's a great business case here. This one was my favorite so far. So we're doing, I literally went down to Seguin and I put tags on cattle. Like literally bought the puncher, went and bought the whole punch and we tagged cattle. I'll show you the sensor in a minute. And we're doing geofencing for them. So they have a huge issue with cattle getting out. Not a lot of the cattle, just 2 or 3, but it pisses the neighbors off. And so you've got this, it's like your dog leaving your yard. You gotta go find them, it takes forever, you're freaking out, you don't know where they are. Someone else has found them, it's a hassle for them. Maybe your dog's killed the chickens next door. The same thing with the cattle. They go in, they mess with other people's stuff, and people get very pissed. So in geofencing, it can notify the rancher that the cattle's off the range, and they can deal with it. There's a lot of other applications of this as well. You can do monitoring of the cattle, biometrics. Ours right now is just focused on the tracking or geofencing. But we're also doing tank monitoring for an aquaponics project they have on the ranch. Gate open, closed, and literally we have one gateway and one big tower or antenna, and it covers the entire range.
So for geofencing, you're just detecting if they go out of range of some sensor?
Not out of the way range of the sensor. So this one that we did, we added GPS to it.
Okay.
And we added the GPS specifically for the geofencing because the range of the signal can be pretty freaking far. So it's hard to do micro-location with LPWA because as soon as it hits the gateway, it doesn't tell you where it's more macro location.
So you actually do care where they are as much as just that they're outside the fence.
Yeah, and then you also have patterns too. Where have they been? Where do they go most? Where are they grazing the most? Where to put certain assets for them, salt blocks.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people like chip the cattle RFID and they can tell if they're gone just because they're out of range now.
Yeah, but RFID is near field. So what do you mean by?
Well, yeah, but they're like in hens and things.
Yeah, but this we're talking about open area. This one's early in the process, but I think for us, this is one of my favorite. I think our target this year is to really figure out how to monetize this type of project.
So what was the distance? What is the area?
The one that we have in Seguin, 3 miles, I think 3-mile radius, give or take. I mean, it wasn't a circle property, but we basically covered about 3 miles. We didn't go any further than that to check signal because we covered the entire range. And I mean, I'll show you the picture someday. It's hilarious. I'm up on this shaky ladder on a 60-year-old barn that's barely put together with this 20-foot antenna, trying to like mount it.
And was it lightning?
No, it was a beautiful, warm Texas day. But that's exciting about what we get to do, is we get to go do these weird things, but we're solving those problems. We're trying to understand the pains and then figure out how do we, yes, monetize it, but build a business around it, build a business case so we understand if I'm spending my life ranching cattle, what are all the difficulties I have from the time I get up at 4 a.m. until I go to bed? And then what keeps me up? If we can understand those things and how you apply this type of technology to it, it's really powerful stuff. People say yes a lot. So, temperature. So one of the biggest projects right now in France, and where the focus is around public housing in France, which is it's a massive business. So it's public housing, but it's run by a private individual or a landlord. This is where I'm going to come back to the service side, which I think is really interesting. So from a business case, QoWisio went in and sold these temperature modules that I have, right? That's why it looks the way it does. That's why the actual design of the hardware looks like a thermostat. But the problem is that all those units are managed by one system or one controller. And so now they know exactly what the temperature is. So if someone complains, they can say, well, it's actually 72 degrees or 80 degrees or whatever it is. But what we found that was really powerful was a service company started getting excited when they started seeing it, because they had access to something they've never seen before. So they would normally come on site when they got called when something went wrong, whether it's refrigeration at HEB, it's a cold case that goes down, or it's CMV or HVAC system. And they would be like, okay, well, what's the symptoms, right? And they're like a doctor, like, well, okay, well, blowing warm air. But they don't know what happened before, or what had happened over a period of time. Now they've got this data. So now they can see events as they happen, because we've recorded it, right? So all of a sudden, you've got the ability to be predictive. And we're not there yet. But the service companies recognize the value of that. And so now they're the channel. So instead of us going to France and going straight to the landlords to get this put in, we're now going to the service companies. And the service companies who have the relationship are now the channel for selling these products into that space. Right? So customer discovery, understanding the problem, building the business case, but then figuring out the economic model is also a key piece of the process to figuring out how to make money and make a living out of this stuff. So understanding the entire economic chain, where it gets consumed, how it gets consumed, and who makes the decision, makes it really easy for a company like QoWisio to say, well, instead of putting 20 salespeople out in France to go sell to all the landlords, we're going to put 5 people out there, and they're going to go deal with all the service companies, right? So you build a channel program. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Do you have a question?
Yeah, on a solution like that, I'm assuming that's something that you want that to be easy to, like you just stick it to the wall or something.
Yeah.
Is that like in order for it to stay low power, is that like, do you have like a bunch of different gateways, or do like hundreds of those connect to one gateway, or is it a mesh, or?
It's not a mesh, it's one gateway.
So
pretty much one gateway for every building.
Okay.
Now, just to qualify, it could be that there might be multiple gateways if it's a large building, but I mean, from what I've seen, this box right here, we can light up a pretty large complex combination.
Are you allowed to say like what type of radio you have in the actual like in device? Like is it like Bluetooth low energy or?
No, it's LPWA.
Okay.
So, well, it's not BLE, it's not cellular, it's LPWA, which is low power wide area. Yeah, but there's probably a better technical term, but that's what I know LPWA.
That's like is that lower frequency than?
It's not
It's like
frequency.
it's LoRaWAN.
Yeah.
It's LoRaWAN, right?
Sorry.
Are you guys using LoRaWAN?
Yeah. Well, it's not LoRaWAN. But it's 900 megahertz, right? Here in the U.S., I think. So it's unlicensed band.
So it's perfect for like low power, goes along like
Correct.
longer
Exactly.
distance, low bandwidth.
Yeah. 16 bits packets, like really small band. Correct. Yeah. again, this is what we started with the temperature thing, and I'm gonna show you guys where we're at now, and I'll pass this stuff around, but we're gonna start printing them. In fact, I should have them in 3 weeks, but the same component is now gonna be a sticker, basically. So the technology is jumping very quickly.
What's the lifespan of the battery?
Anywhere from 1 to 5 years. It can go longer, but to give you an example, like the last test we did, I want to say it was 3-year life expectancy based on every an hour. I think it was an hour cadence. But it depends on the type of sensor. Like the one we're using for cattle with GPS, I mean, that's going to go quick. I don't know what the life expectancy is going to be. But this pinger for tracking for assets, it's pinging once every 4 hours. It'll last for 10 years. The little coin battery.
In an application like this, do you get much pushback from the people who live in these apartments saying, I don't want you putting this stuff in here to spy on me?
I'm not close enough to that side of the business to answer that. I don't think so.
I mean, if somebody came and
Public
stuck
housing,
something like that up on my wall, I'd be a little suspicious about what's inside it really,
Yeah.
I mean, the sticker will be more innocuous.
I think society might be kind of adjusting to that slowly. When you consider we have
Every
the
day
Amazon
I ask
Echo.
my Amazon Echo if it works for the CIA.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the open source ones that are coming out. I don't know. I know that the business is skyrocketing. It's doing really well. So we play a quick video. It's like 2-3 minutes. It is in French, but we dubbed over it in English. So
Is Godzilla in it?
huh?
Is Godzilla in it?
No, no. But this goes back to the supermarket. And I think it's really interesting because I told Dave I wanted to talk a little bit about how we get to the business case, right? Because understanding the people that make decisions, understanding their pains, and then having them get excited about solving that problem for them is it's fun. It may not work.
Hello, I'm Philip Germon. I'm the owner of 2 supermarkets that are part of an $18 billion group. QoWisio's headquarters are located in the same region as my 2 supermarkets. The initial idea is that for us, as entrepreneurs, we think that connected objects are necessary in today's business, especially with the fast-coming competition from Amazon. QoWisio's solution is very simple to implement with its autonomous devices and a battery. There are no electrical wires, allowing the device to be placed in or on the cold case, with data being sent to an app on my mobile or on a web app. This allows us to archive the entire temperature and alarm information.
Each morning, the very first thing I do when I arrive at my stores is to check what happened the night before on the web application. There are several benefits. There's the human factor. If someone is sick, it might be the person in charge of collecting the temperature manually. The employee who replaces this sick person will not necessarily think about doing it. That's where things can go wrong. The consequence can be loss of valuable goods and money. That's how it always happens. The software is super simple to work with, and with the historical data, I can now go back and review the last 24 hours, or all the way back to last month. I can filter information, or I can easily change alert thresholds. The QoWisio system, it's turnkey and completely autonomous.
The QoWisio solution is once again simple, easy to implement, very cost effective, and it saves us time and money. It is also a gain on the cold case's control reliability. What is very interesting is that we were able to co-construct this solution in a short time, in 3 months. We had this need, and QoWisio brought us a packaged solution, effective, close to our needs, in a very short time. Today, the stores are equipped with this automatic data collection solution for cold cases, which allows us to consider many other use cases. For example, the arrival of a customer to the drive-thru could be very interesting information to collect using QoWisio devices. An out-of-stock in the store also seems to us an interesting use case to make it happen for different goods. For example, when there is no more bread, knowing what time it occurred, but also evaluate how much revenue we lost is important. The day we realize that our retail sector is in full digitalization, including subjects like quality, we can now imagine that the usage of connected devices and turnkey solutions for retail is infinite.
So obviously that was done about 3 weeks before Amazon and Whole Foods made their announcement. I'll tell you right now, from dealing with the retail market for the last 3 months, they're all freaking out. They're all freaking out. Whether it's our local stores here, we're dealing with one in the Midwest, but they're all trying to figure out how we're going to compete with that. So. So, from all this work with grocery stores, we really looked at the business case and we decided to make kits. So, we've got 2 pilots in Austin right now. One with Fresh Plus and one with Wheatsville. Same issues, just cold kits. We haven't even looked at applying the sensors to any other part of the business, just the cold case business. So, we've put these kits together. We're going to start going to market with it. We've got a very simple application. So there's no training really. I mean, once you can get it on your phone, it's almost self-evident how to set it up and how to mess with it. And the feedback has been really, really positive. So hopefully they'll both turn into customers. We hope they'll turn into customers. We'll see. But you start looking at all the different ways that you can apply this hardware to get very simple data. I'll give you another example. Grocery carts are a huge issue. You never think about how much money they lose on an annual basis, but it's a lot, thousands and thousands of dollars. They've got probably anywhere from 300 to 700 carts. And people take them, you see them on the side of the road, or the homeless guy walking around with it, right? So now we're working on a tracking project that'll just let them know if the cart is in or out of the store, but it'll keep track of the asset itself so they know what their inventory is. But now the cart guys and gals know when they need to go out to the parking lot and bring those carts in. Would you ever thought that was needed? No, you just send them out there, they pick up carts, they come back. But if you can make that more efficient, you impact the productivity of that employee per hour. So that's the business cases that we're trying to build on. We're not trying to do machine-to-machine or video or high bandwidth type stuff. We're trying to solve very simple problems that have a huge impact to revenue.
It'd be really cool
Cost.
if you could have pushing the shopping cart charge the battery.
So there's actually a company that does that with they use RFID and something else, but they're regenerative wheels.
Yeah.
Of course, again, going back to the pallet example, if I go to a pallet company and tell them I've got a $25 sensor, there's no way they're going to put that on 10,000 pallets.
Yeah.
They're going to laugh at you. They're not going to put $40, $50, $100 setup on every cart. It just doesn't financially make sense. But if you break it down to what's really needed, the simple data, and you can get that cost down to $5, it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, going back to customer discovery and not just talking with a CIO or a manager or the IT guys, but talking to the people that manage the asset, have to buy new carts every year, or manage the cost of an employee on a minute-by-minute basis to go and get that cart, and really learning how does it really impact the business. You build that case with the company, almost like a co-development, which I think he actually mentioned, right? This was done together. when we launched this pilot. That's powerful. You take that and you expand it, next thing you know, you got 5% of the retail grocery market in the US, and that's about $10 million. It's not a small sum of money. So those are the things that we are going through the process of trying to unblock and turn into a business. So these are the sensors that we have right now that are coming out. And I'm going to pass these around. Start passing those around.
Should we turn the lights on?
Yeah, sure.
Yep, so any of your sensors, so a big thing that we talked about, of course, is ease of installation and a lot of like with batteries. But certain installations, like cold cases, for instance, would lend themselves well to fixed installations being powered. So you don't have that option here? Like
Yes, yeah, because all the RMS stuff that they did with telcos was all fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where they came from, but the LPWA is where they started moving in 2011 or
I mean, even the I can't talk today. The LPWA stuff. Are there any options to have these, powered by a wall wart or something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems like you want to reduce.
Yeah, I mean,
Otherwise, you have like 30 things in the store. You got to replace batteries every couple of years.
correct.
And that in itself is sort of.
Yep, no, I think when there is power, or if it made sense to have regenerative power or solar power, those things can be done pretty easily. But when you can get the cost so low, like, the pallet thing is interesting with the, $3 to $5 price point, you can color code these little pingers, right? Blue is, whatever month.
Right, right.
And then you know that every 12 months you're gonna replace them, or whatever the cycle is. But it's, they're not two-way devices. This is only sending information, and the gateway is only receiving, even though the gateway can be updated remotely. And the printed stuff and the new sensors, I mean, you look at the bigger one I'm sending around with the temperature, this one right here. I mean, those things are great for what they do in a complex, an apartment, or someone's home, but putting them into a cold case is not exactly the most convenient thing. But the next version of that is going to be smaller than this, magnetized. You just walk in, and it self connects. You just plug in the gateway, and you're off and running. Give it a name. This is the meat walk-in, or whatever it is. They'll be capable of going into the freezer, so it'll be negative 20 degrees, and they'll continue to work.
So how do they appear?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, how do you do that? How do you actually identify it?
Just, it's got a
It's got-
code
got
that's
code
associated
too.
with it, and in the iPhone app, you can go through and just rename it. You just type in the code and it comes up. It's associated with a specific customer's account. You just name it meat walking or dairy or whatever it is in a grocery store. Or Rosie the cow. We named all the cattle correctly so that he knew which one got out.
So if I have a store next door and I set up the system, is there gonna be crosswalk between my sensors and gateways and there?
Yeah, so when we set it up, the sensors that we apply to that install are specific to that location and that gateway. Or gateways, if there's multiple.
As like the businesses get like more advanced use cases, like you was talking about with like calculating the lost revenue from breads, like being lost and stuff. Is that something that you guys foresee that like you'll help companies calculate and process the data, or is that something that you're gonna like leave to another company to do?
No, because so this is a fight that we have internal between Guillaume and I come from a software background more than hardware, so I see value more in the software than I always think of Kodak's a good example where they didn't change their business model. Dell, mastered the supply chain back in the 80s, but they got crushed when everyone else replicated what they did because the hardware, the supply chain and commoditizing something is pretty, it's guaranteed to happen, whereas software, you're constantly changing and adding more value. And the biggest problem we're gonna have, and we have today, is, yeah, you got terabytes of data. What the hell are you gonna do with it? How are you gonna, consume it? How do you internalize it? How do you apply that towards whatever the business case is? So being able to provide simple tools that simplify the process of using that data, dashboards, or tying into, existing APIs into existing software is gonna be where the power is. And I think where that power is where there's gonna be more value, therefore.
So you want to
More
be
money.
but you have to win some political battles?
Yeah, well, I think, yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I think we agree on it. The question is where our focus is today. And I think today, it's how do we get, 1 million of these out there?
Yeah, you get the data first.
Yeah. So, yep.
Do y'all have any plans to open an API for people that want to build sensors for, vertical market type specialized applications?
Yeah, we're not that company. I think, if you look at Sigfox and Laura, I think is more that in line with that, where it's an open source platform basically, right? Where you can develop using, what's the little board called?
Raspberry Pi.
Raspberry Pi, and you build your own stuff.
So,
Yeah. But we're the guys that want to do that. And that's our goal, is that we want to systemize it. We want to say, okay, well, this technology applies, or this type of sensor applies to this business. And we go to the next business and work with them to figure out, okay, well, here's what it looks like, here's what it does, here's how many times it sends information, here's what the dashboard looks like, and then that becomes a product, and boom, it becomes its own business. And we go do it again with another business case. So,
Yeah, because if you did that, then that would, that's your moat, right?
Yeah.
If you have all the data yourself, then you can process it and make money off of it. So
Hopefully.
other people do.
Yeah.
I don't really know much about LWP or LPWA. Could you clarify of how you avoid crosstalk with the network next door?
So I could probably defer to someone that might know more than me. So the 900 megahertz, I think, is what we're on. It's unlicensed band, so there's not a lot of what do you call it when there's congestion?
Interference.
Interference, right?
Congestion.
It doesn't affect the attenuation of the signal or whatever. But, I don't know there being any issue.
But
It's not.
I mean, do you just is it just that the service that's listening for this sensor only listens for his sensor and he doesn't listen for anybody else's?
Correct.
So it's just identified, it's not like they're really private and encrypted or anything like that.
There is encryption, but I'm not sure what, it's not like encryption that I'm familiar with. Not like 256 or whatever the security is. And again, so you can tell that I'm already trying to struggle for the correct language. So that's my second
I'm just
position.
curious about the,
I mean,
great detail.
From a security standpoint, you gotta remember that you can't hack this, right? It's not receiving information.
Right, you
It's
can't
sensors.
use-
You
you
can't
can't
eavesdrop
eavesdrop,
on data
yeah.
and so on.
Sure.
But we're talking about 16 bits a day.
So it sounds like you concentrate entirely on incoming information, passive sensing and no control.
Correct. The gateway, there's some control on,
Right.
updating
But
firmware.
you're not like turning lights on or off actively.
No. Now, could we? Yeah, but that's not the business right now. I think we'll get there. I think there's other companies that are working on solving that problem. Our goal really is looking at the situations that you kind of described.
It just seems like, that's the first thing the customer's gonna ask you the next year is,
Yep.
hey, it tells me the light's left on, can I turn it off for my iPhone?
Yeah. And, that's a good Trojan horse strategy from, a business standpoint. 'Cause you already have the relationship, you have the sensors, you have the network, then you come out with a new type of technology, a new sensor, it's not bimodal, but bi-directional thing. For sure.
Have you identified a lot of competition in your space?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a lot. I think there's definitely companies out there doing sensors. There's no one in the US that I know of that's doing exactly what we're doing with the technology we are. A lot of them are using Bluetooth or other unlicensed band technology, 2.4 gigahertz stuff. But they're competitors in certain areas, like retail space, because you can use Wi-Fi in the spaces. You can hardwire stuff. It doesn't have to be, autonomous. We just simplify it by making it really easy to install. Sigfox is probably the most talked about competitor, but they're a network operator. They're not building the full solution. They're relying on the market to create the sensors and the software and, all the guys out there wanting to like make their own things, they'll DIY and create their own solutions.
So are y'all using, because I'm assuming you're 913 in the US, are y'all on 858 in Europe, or do y'all use 9?
It is something different, yeah, I think it's, I don't know what it is in Europe, but that sounds correct.
Yeah.
I'll shake my head.
Yeah, I mean, so you're, that's fine, you're using the less spectrum with the sense.
Yeah.
So, I'm just curious how it's gonna play out. That's the one thing about AT&T and the carriers. Is that I get that everything's not, shouldn't be cellular based, that's why I said earlier, I'm thinking about shaking things up a little bit.
And they're investing heavily in 5G, right? I mean, that's kind of what the buzz is all about, but.
Yeah, I think that personally, I think that the term 5G is misused as it pertains to IoT, but it's, I'm not saying you're misusing it, saying the industry does. I'm saying the industry
Well, I
does.
mean, it happened with WiMAX too. It
Yeah.
happened with,
Yeah.
and where's WiMAX nowadays?
But I'm just, having licensed spectrum and that protection and knowing the spectrum, I think says a lot for reliability. So I'm wondering what's gonna happen when everybody's doing stuff on unlicensed spectrum. If we don't have congestion today, will we later?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Try to set up a Wi-Fi router in New York.
Exactly. You can go, even in my neighborhood in Cedar Park, Texas. New York is a nightmare.
But your business model seems to be like you're kind of consulting and creating customized solutions for like retail, but no subscription part of it. Is that so?
There is. So.
No, I just saw a number there, no subscription cost or anything, which is very good
Well,
for retail, which is
Yeah.
cutthroat competitive, so I don't see too
So
much
actually,
margins.
I have an updated slide that wasn't in there, and so that was a great catch. That was specific to 3G connectivity. So a lot of projects like this have 3G connectivity where you have subscription cost. There's no cost of connectivity within our solution. It's only the backhaul.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That makes perfect
but we
sense.
do have, and that's why we changed it, we do have a subscription cost now. So we sell the device, like one of these, let's say, retails for $80, right? But then there's $25 a year,
Okay.
or $36 a year, or whatever it might be, maybe it's $3 a month. And that provides you all the other components besides the hardware, so it's access to the data, the API,
Support, data,
history
software,
support,
and all those.
battery replacement for 3 years, so we do things like that.
So they don't like own their own data, they don't have their own server picking it up, what's going through.
They can. We can send it to them if that's what they want. We would
Right.
rather it go
But it's always going through you on the way, even if
Correct.
they do that.
Correct. That's good. Well done. I didn't have a lot of time to put this nice together.
No, it's just.
I'll now make a mental note.
Coming back to a little bit what you talked about Amazon and Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Tough market to be in. Whenever you read magazines, retail is really hurting.
It is.
And both great opportunities to help them. I'm not in the business whatsoever, but also tough business to get into. I mean, you can't sell expensive solutions,
I don't
for
think
sure.
I don't think it's our honey hole. I don't think it's going to be retail.
No,
But there's a need there.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
But
I'll give you another good one. So you guys, has anyone been to Rainy Street? There's a great place down there that sells hundreds of beers. I won't mention its name.
which one?
I'm not mentioning it because this is being recorded. It's not done yet, but we're going to do a pilot with it. And you would never think that a beer place would be a good place, but they make food as well. They have 7 cold cases in the back, plus a couple of freezers and refrigerators for all their food that they create their product with. They have no idea what the temperature is. They have to check it and record it, but they got $20,000, $30,000 worth of finished products sitting there. That if one of those things goes down, that's a huge impact in their business. And we can go in there for $600-700 and light everything up, and they're off and running. So simple. It's at a budget point where it's not like you're dipping into, big savings, and you can save them thousands and thousands of dollars. So the business case is there, but how do I go to 100 of those or 1,000 of those?
Well, microbreweries you could, microbreweries, micropubs, that is a business that is exploding, so you
Yep.
can create a model for them and take that to 1,000 different.
So kegs are a big thing. Like people want to know, is it a keg empty or full? But we're trying to figure that one out. Is it a pinger that taps the keg and off of that tone, you know what the volume is? Because you can't touch the product, you can't be in the product.
Yeah.
So there's some weird things like that. You've got counters that count beer coming out, but that's not highly accurate.
Yeah, weight, need weight and scales.
Yeah, that's the other one. So we've got one for store shelves that we started on. It's a mat that is weight sensitive. It's LPWA tech connected. But yeah, so what you're doing right now is, I think, what we get off on. And that's what, when we find someone, we walk into any establishment that I go into, I go and find the general manager, manager, whoever it is that runs the place, and I say, can I get 5 minutes with you? And I just start having a conversation. I say, tell me about, do you guys do this? What are you using right now to solve this problem or this? Tell me about, what bothers you about this inefficiency. And so you start this conversation, you start hearing what the problems are, and then you go, oh, I got this solution, and it's sales 101, but it's applied in more of a customer discovery dynamic where you're trying to understand a market. I'm not trying to sell right now, I'm trying to create pilots and create interest to determine, is there a market to go after? Do we want to stay away from grocery stores because Amazon and Whole Foods are going to focus, everyone's focused on that right now. Oh, so where do we need to be? But you can go into a Jack in the Box and they have refrigeration, right? Go and go after the 3,000 Jack in the Box in the US? Maybe. It'd be a nice one single contract.
It's too decentralized.
Huh?
That's too decentralized, it's all franchise.
It is. See?
Jack in the Box.
Yeah. But if it works for one, they're regional enough where they probably talk and you might, and there's probably service
They got a
companies.
history of serving really bad chicken. Still remember. Still remember.
You could solve that.
Go and print it part of the franchise model so that it actually goes out with their business instead of every other.
You know, with Whole Foods, if your system is at a good price point, and it's cheaper for them just to get yours than it is to develop something in-house. I mean, because it seems like the scope of y'all's company is it's pretty limited. You know, it's just telemetry data, it's not all this fancy interactive junk, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, it seems like that you could just sell them your product. And I'm guessing it would be a whole lot more cost effective than.
Except for the problem with Whole Foods is they've already done it.
Oh. Okay.
So they, in 2015, they signed a contract with a company called Infor, which is software data. And they already have what do they call their, their electronic ink tags, right? So they can change the date or the price, and they can do that remotely. They don't have to go to each one. And they already have temperature that's connected because most of their stores they invested in their cold chain because they know that what's going on with FDA and some of the regulation is that you have to manage and capture data of the cold chain with certain products. So they've already built all that in, at least 85%. And then the CIO is very adamant. It's like, and I mentioned this earlier. I don't mind the fact that my guys and gals are out there walking around the aisles checking temperature because they're interacting with the customer. So to them, it wasn't a pain. Whereas Fresh Plus, it was a huge pain for them, right? So
Did you say Infor?
he's in for it. Does that sound right? I pulled it out of the bank of memory from research I did probably in January. So. But Infor is a big data company. and it was a big contract. Cool. Anything else? So I have an ask of you guys. If you know anyone in business that could use this type of technology, they don't have to pay for it. I'll come and help them set it up and pilot it. If there's a good business case there, I would love to meet. I would love introductions. I'd love to ideate around how do you take something like this and apply it to business cases I don't know. I did this at another group that was a business-oriented group, and we got introduced to a guy that's building a new distillery. So we looked at distillery. You start looking at the whole process of creating alcohol, and you've got to really manage everything.
That's what I said with the microphone, same idea.
Well, yeah, you mentioned that, and so, but it's also storage too. They put a huge barrel of bourbon in a warehouse. They don't want to just know the overall temperature. They want to know the temperature in each barrel, and the humidity over years, so that they can go back and replicate the exact same process. And if they don't capture that data, then they have no clue.
Right, it's all about the magic batch.
The magic batch,
right?
Yep.
Oh, that barrel's good.
Yep.
What's the magic behind
How
that?
did that end up that way? Exactly. That was in lot 4, and it was in the corner of the warehouse, and it got exposed to 110-degree heat, whatever it is, and then they can try and replicate it.
So is this ready to go yet?
3 weeks. I'll see it in 3 weeks.
Is it just temperature or does humidity too?
The first ones that I get are going to be temperature and location, ping location. So it's a combination of the two. Humidity will be the second thing that's added to. The third one.
Where are those manufactured?
Everything's done in France right now. We've met with the local, what do they call it, AMS? For the hardware, the guys that make the boards and everything.
AMD?
Not AMD, but
Contract manufacturer.
yeah, there's a name for it. Just draw the blank. AMS, right? That's what they're called. But the guys that print the boards, they construct everything, they can pot them, and they can help construct the whole appliance. But we're looking at doing it here, but we don't have the volume to do it. So everything's done in France. Angers, which is where the company's based, is a sister city of Austin. They're an IoT city. They're considered a tech city. They're very, very small compared to what Austin is now. We were sister cities back like when we were the same size, like 40 years ago or something. But they're holding the World Electronic Forum in October, which is a huge deal. It was in Singapore last time. So cool place, but everything's done there.
You said that is gonna have location, the GPS location?
Macro. So you think about like, put it on a pallet, you'll have the temperature throughout the process, and then you'll have location when it arrives at certain locations, if there's a gateway.
All right.